Women are powerful beings, yet we walk through life from an early age disconnected from our intuition, our power, and our hearts. And on many levels, we've lost our interconnected community of women and the village that supports us and passes down the knowledge to help us connect to our bodies as we grow. Tune in to today's episode with Amy Wheeler. She's a sports psychologist and yoga therapist as she shares more about the importance of knowing yourself and lifestyle medicine. And listen until the end because this is a great conversation as we dive into losing it when hormones shift, the pelvic floor, the connection to perimenopause and incontinence, the rites of passage as a woman, and the strength of the bond between mother and child. Are you wondering how in the world to stay healthy and sane right now? Well, I put together an online program to help you through this tough time and learn how to keep your immune system strong, reduce inflammation, and reset your gut health. It integrates yoga, meditation, whole food nutrition, and herbal medicine, and it's only $47 for a limited time. So go to alyssafinnick.com/stay healthy. That's alyssafinnick.com/stay healthy to join, and you'll get access right away. I can't wait for you to begin this program as these are all the tools that help me keep healthy and sane, not only this year, but for the long term. And this episode is brought to you by Sunbasket, my favorite meal delivery service and the one that saved me after I had a baby. I've tried them all. Has the most fresh ingredients and also the most unique and flavorful meal options. You can choose from paleo, vegetarian, and everything in between. And I always like doing the dairy-free and gluten-free. So if you want to get $35 off and some free gifts that they'll add in, head over to alyssafinnick.com/sunbasket and enjoy your first order. Welcome to the Wild Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Alyssa Finnick, and this is your space to learn more about the importance of slowing down, taking care of yourself, and the mind-body connection. And most importantly, how to reclaim your health by listening to your body's innate wisdom and reconnecting with the earth. All right, welcome back to the Wild Wisdom Podcast. Hi, Amy. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm really joyful about being here today.
Well, good. Well, I'm excited as we dive into something I haven't explored on the podcast. So I love, and I know it's something you're passionate about. We're going to talk about mental health, psychology, yoga therapy for Gen Z. For blossoming women coming into their own. And I think it's especially important at that age, high school, college, that sort of stuff right now. And especially with what's going on in the world and all the technology and how it's just changed our lives. Like I remember when I grew up, I got a beeper, and I remember my friend with the first car phone, but I didn't get a cell phone for a long time. So, my generation, and I'm sure yours too, we didn't have all that stuff. And so, but now it's like, it's in your face, and younger are exposed to it. And plus there's a lot more stressors and demands. So I think it's an important topic to explore. And I'm excited that you're excited about exploring that. So, but what I like to start with is, let's tell the audience a little bit about you. I know you've been a college professor in sports psychology and teaching some other things for 25 plus years. Mm-hmm. You're also a yoga therapist, but what brought you into weaving all of this? Was it your personal journey? Was it your love for research? How'd you get here?
Well, I think it probably started very young. I was one of those young women who just had an internal compass, and I could not, for the life of me, allow myself to be directed by someone's approval or some external force or something. And so as early as 7th grade, I was calling things out when the girls were being mean to one another. I was, to the point where I think it made a lot of young women uncomfortable because I was using my voice. And it wasn't that I wanted to, it's that I couldn't do anything different. I couldn't not be me. And that's just how I came out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had a pretty rough time in high school, honestly. Some people might have said, oh, she's an athlete and she's, I don't know if they would have said I was popular, but they would have said she's smart. But the truth is I didn't have any friends. Because when you go your own way and when you speak your truth, it's not always popular. And sometimes it makes people feel insecure because they're probably thinking, how can you speak your truth? I'm not brave enough to do that kind of thing. So it started very young, and I had a kind of a hard time in high school, to be honest. And as I went to college, very similar things. I just couldn't keep my mouth shut. And it's progressed throughout my life, with social justice issues and diversity and equity and inclusion. I get myself in trouble all the time with the old white guys. So it's just been this theme through my life. And once I got in college, I got some really good women mentors that showed me how to channel it, how to direct it, how to not burn the whole forest down, but rather just use it very carefully and with a lot of discernment. And so one of my mentors was Gloria Balagay, from University of Illinois at Chicago. When I was getting my PhD, she basically took me around the world with her as a sports psychologist, took me under her wing and taught me everything I know about being a sports psychologist, which I still am 30 years later. And it just has been a great journey being a woman, loving being a woman and connecting with other women. I feel like we are powerful. And what I want to do is help women when they're 15, 16, 17, 20, 23, 27, realize that potency and that power early in life and not have to go through the suffering that I did, the loneliness, the insecurity, the anxiety, the not having good girlfriends, frankly. And so I feel like as a college professor of 25 years, that is my main theme to all these young women is like, know who you are, love who you are, know why you're here. Don't take any SHIT.
Oh, you can cuss on this show. That's totally fine.
I was like, are there children listening to this?
No, there's not on my end.
So, and really talk about what you believe in. I was looking at, I don't know if it was a text this morning or a tweet or something, but, The Rock, who Dwayne Johnson is, he has 200 million followers on his Instagram. And I know he's not very feminine, but I think we can still learn from him because he is in touch with his feminine side. And he was saying, speak your truth, even when the conversations are uncomfortable, even when it's hard. That's the best time to speak your truth and come forward and be who you are. So I really like The Rock. I think he's so cool.
I love that. I love it. 2 million followers. Wow. Or did you say 2 million or
200 million?
200 million. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I do like him though. Yes, but it's true. Like, and this is why, like, I always feel like it's my purpose to empower women, empower myself, teach my daughter, there's like, I said, there's no kids right now, but I have a 1-year-old. So teach my daughter, like, from a young age, to trust her intuition, to know that she's powerful and get in touch with that. And so I think we forget that. We forget that we can be empowered at a younger age. And that is the time as we're growing, as we're, transitioning from girl to woman and coming into our own. And we're bombarded with so many things. Like, you should look like this. Like, there was, I saw this thing. Oh, was it? I don't know her real name. The actress, she played Miranda on Sex and the City, but she said, like, act like a lady. Like, I don't know if you've seen that thing where it's like all these things we're told as women, act like a lady, do this, do that. And it's all contradictory. And so we're bombarded with that, plus what our parents tell us. And it's just, you don't know how to be you. And like in your case, you had this internal compass and you were being you, and then you don't have any friends, you know, so there's like this balance. Sometimes people want to act a certain way so they can feel like they're included. And it's like, but if we can just be accepting of everyone and their differences, then inclusion can happen. But that's a whole nother thing. So, but I think that it's important for women to know themselves. And I think it's great what you're doing of sharing it at a younger age, because a lot of times we're not aware that we even need to know that. Like, you know, creating that self-awareness at a younger age is so important. So how have you, I mean, obviously you're doing it through your teaching. How else have you shared that wisdom with younger women?
I first of all want to tell you what we did in my sports psychology class today.
Yeah.
We were talking about confidence. That was the topic of the day. And I told all the students in the chat, you have to put 3 things that you love about yourself. And so they were all typing the 3 things. And I said, okay, now most of you wrote very humble things that you're, you know, all these things that basically are for someone else. I'm generous, I'm kind, I said, now that's all great. It's not that I don't want you to do that, but I want you to write what you love about you that isn't about an external reference point, that is about you just look at yourself or feel yourself or sense yourself and you like that, you know? And they had a much harder time with that because they're so, even in trying to figure out what they like about themselves, it's always this external reference point. So that was interesting to me. It was much slower when, you know, the answers coming in, it was like they couldn't even think about, I think I'm funny. And the only thing that matters is I think I'm funny. It doesn't matter if you think I'm funny or, you know, whatever. So that was kind of a fun exercise to do with them today. But, you know, in our classes at the university, this is what we do all day long. And then we get in breakout groups and we have discussions about these things. But I'll tell you the thing that really changed my life, that took me from, yes, I have this internal compass. Yes, this internal voice is screaming loudly so much that I can't ignore it and I keep getting myself in big trouble. But I was super anxious because it was hard work. It was like climbing up this mountain without being prepared. And I didn't have the coping mechanisms. I didn't have the self-regulation. And I just kept running into these really difficult situations without the ability to have self-awareness and know how to calm my anxiety. And so that's really was the turning point when I got into yoga therapy, was that I realized, oh, there's things you can do to control your anxiety. There's things you can do to get to sleep at night when your mind is going crazy. There's things that you can do when you find yourself emotional eating and you don't want to be emotionally eating, but you just keep doing it anyway. That yoga therapy has these tools, especially for women, I think, to help us become self-aware, self-regulate, and basically coping mechanisms so that we can be ourselves and be true and have hard conversations and change the world ultimately.
So yeah, I love, because that was actually going to be my question I was thinking about as you were talking, was, you know, the yoga therapy and how that was a part of what you do and what you found for yourself. Certainly that's sometimes why we go and explore that, because we're like, wow, this is helpful and I want to go deeper. So what have you found, how do you integrate that with what you do, whether it's in the college setting or elsewhere, in sharing, you know, just traditional asana, pranayama, you know, that sort of stuff for self-regulation and coping, or how do you kind of frame it?
So I work with, you know, athletes as a sports psychologist, but also as a college professor. And then I have people, you know, young women come to me in my private practice that's kind of separate from the university. And it really boils down to a few things. The first thing is what I call lifestyle medicine, which is, what time are you going to bed? What time are you getting up? What are you having first thing in the morning? How much caffeine are you having? Are you eating healthy meals? Are you taking time for joy and fun? Are you, you know, doing things that you love? Like there's the lifestyle, right? And that's
Mhm.
part of yoga therapy too,
Yeah.
especially from the Ayurvedic perspective. That's the
Mhm.
kind of the perspective that I use to help people get their life, but also that regulates their nervous system to get good sleep and to eat well and to drink plenty of water, right? So today I taught a yoga class at the university today, and I had a big talk about water and
Mhm.
how important water is. And when we get dehydrated, our brains stop working and we get more anxious and, all that stuff.
Mhm.
So I think the lifestyle medicine is where I start.
Mhm.
And then from there, of course, we go into practices,
Yeah.
asanas, pranayamas, breathing exercises, visualizations, affirmations, meditation. But I find all of that doesn't work as well if we haven't set them up for success with their lifestyle.
I completely agree. I mean, that's what when in my one-on-ones with women, like it's that whole Ayurvedic lifestyle medicine, that core, I think it lays the foundation. And, because it can be like this, oh, here's a little practice, here's this, and those are great. And they can be good references. But yeah, if you're not changing the core things of your daily life, then you're going to come back to the same things over and over. So I completely agree. And that's what I love about yoga therapy and the integration of, Ayurveda, because it is part of yoga therapy as a sister science. But it's because it does talk about just your daily living and shifting that and getting the basics. And I love that you taught about water, because it's so important. Like I have to pay attention, because I usually only drink water. Once in a while I'll drink something else. And I have been having coffee in the morning lately, but usually, but then I'm like, have I drank enough water? Like I really have to pay attention, because it does affect us so much. And my issue is more of just, oh, I'm working and then I, forget sort of thing. But I know some people don't even drink enough water because they're drinking everything else. So I think basic conversation.
I take one of these great big, and I put one in the morning on my desk. I put one next to my bedstand,
Mhm.
and then I have one near my workout. And so wherever I am, it's like, okay, there's water there, and I put
Yes.
electrolytes in there. And if I
Yes.
don't do that, I will go an entire day without drinking any water.
Well, so doing those little tricks to help us make sure we get our water. My issue is I need to buy one of those that I like, because I bought something that I'm like, it'll leak. Like I've leaked water in my car, and I'm like, okay, I don't like you. But I think, that's the trick. It's sort of that aesthetics, like, you have something you like and you'll use it. And that's how you can get your water, because it's positioned in the right place. It can be so simple. And people don't always realize, like, you have to do these little things.
Let me show you, because I am the master of this. I don't know if I can grab it quickly enough, but I set myself up on calendars and schedules for every type of health behavior change that I want to do. So here it is. This is the
All right. Well,
myself, okay,
yeah.
this is what I'm going to do each morning at Monday. And I do this for my clients. I'm sure you do too.
Sure. Yeah.
Monday from 5:30 to 6:30 is cardio. 6:30 to 7 is walk Bo, my dog. 7 o'clock to 7:45 is pranayama, right? I put it on here. And then I also have these checklists where I have my eating plan, and I have my watering plan, and I have my my mental health plan, right? That what am I going to do for my mental health? Here's the mental health, right?
Oh, I love it. Well, so not everybody can see this, but Amy's showing like her checklist that she's made, that she pulls out for every week and checking off each day to make sure she's managing. I think that is amazing, because we have to have tools like that, and because people are like, oh, I'm so busy. How am I going to add self-care or exercise, which is a form of self-care, but, my yoga practice or pranayama or drinking water, and am I supposed to remember all this? And we have to have tools like that to remind us, whether it's the water bottle we really like and we're making sure that we drink, three refills of this a day or something, or it's a checklist like that. So I love your checklist because I love the stuff, like I put it on my fridge, I can check it off, or I have my journal, but I write down my schedule and I sometimes rewrite it out because I do not like routine. Although routine is very balancing and healing for me, I resist it all the time. But routine makes me feel better. So I do it, and it's also good for my daughter and my dog. But I am like the one who doesn't want the routine. I resist it, but I know I feel better, and I write it out. And I'm like, okay, this time we're getting up, feeding the baby, we're going for a walk. We're doing this every morning, and throughout my day. And this day I'm done with my work, and we're going to have dinner and that sort of stuff. And if I don't do that, I don't have self-care time. I don't get my walks in the morning. Since I've had a baby, I've had to adjust, and that's sometimes what we have to do is adjust our schedule. So I don't have my morning time where I used to do yoga and stuff. Now, sometimes we'll do yoga together. It just depends on the day and when the babysitter arrives and stuff in the morning. But I put her down at 6:45 or 7, so now I have some evening time, as long as she stays asleep. So I've had to readjust my schedule. But we have to have going with the flow and adjusting, but making it priority, and then having those tools that keep us honest and accountable. So I love that you shared that.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just tell you a few of my little tricks. Number one is something called canva.com, Canda, and that's where I make all these beautiful calendars. There's free version.
Perfect.
And you can just plug in your own, mental health checklist or, exercise routine. So I use Canva all the time to make all my checklists. Mm-hmm. And I encourage my college students to do the same, because as women, we tend to put ourselves last. It's like, if I have time, I'll take care of me. And what I recognized a few years ago is I was getting burnt out. I was gaining weight. My hormones were off. I was exhausted all the time, and I had started going into chronic pain. Mm-hmm. Not a good combination for a vibrant, potent woman.
Yeah.
So I really reprioritized and put myself on schedules so that the first thing in my calendar is me. Mm-hmm. The first thing in my calendar is, here's when my self-care is, and everything else has to work around that. Mm-hmm. Right. And part of that for me is finding teachers that I want to take class from. I have a somatics teacher in Chicago that I love to take class from. I have, obviously now online people that I like to take class with. So one thing I wanted to invite your listeners, because maybe they have high school or college age kids, is that every time I teach a yoga class at my university, I stream it onto a special Facebook page. And so you or anybody else could take yoga class with me every Tuesday, Thursday morning. We start at 7:45 to 9 o'clock a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And the Facebook page that they, stream onto is called The Optimal State, just The Optimal State. And I'll just leave them up there. I mean, we have 15-week semesters, and we do 2 a week. So there'll be 30 classes up there. I think we're at week 7 right now. So there's quite a few up there. But you could either watch them and do them live in the morning with me, or you could come back in another time and do those practices for free.
Yeah, those are wonderful. We'll make sure to link in the show notes as well to that. I think that's great. And especially because when you're teaching, often people think, just going to go to a yoga class, but you're integrating those lifestyle discussions into your yoga class, just like you talked about water today. And that's what people need, that integration, that reminder. Because even if we're like, all of these things, we need reminders from time to time. So that's why it's good to continue our practice and practice on our own, but also with teachers, because
And
sometimes
I
we have
think
someone's
ha-
wisdom.
having that scheduled time, I
Mhm.
mean, I love replays that I can watch too, because there's some
Sure.
days I cannot make their live class, but when I have a time and a place and I'm going to go with Amy at, for this long,
Mhm.
for me, that's just, it, it says to me, I am a priority and I am scheduling this time for me and nothing's going to take this away from me. And I like that. I like the idea of women putting themselves first
Mhm.
instead of last.
Yes, because, and I think sometimes we as women, like we have to be cognizant and make that decision, just like you said, when, hormones were going off, you're tired, because I just recently did that too. And I had done that before, but I had to kind of redo it. Like I need to make my self-care a priority because I had a baby and it just changes everything. And I had to reorganize stuff. And so I've been back into my routine and making time for self-care in various ways, and also going to see like pelvic floor physical therapists and that sort of stuff. But making that time because I want to feel better. So I just did all like my labs for hormone fluctuation, whatever, like see where I'm at, adrenal, cortisol, all that stuff, to get a baseline, because I'm like, I just need a baseline because it's off. Like I'm very off. And a lot of women, especially after a baby, have, that, but it doesn't even have to be because you had a baby.
I was going to say, let's not even get started on perimenopause and menopause.
Right?
When I was in perimenopause, I could not think for 3 years. I would be up in front of a class lecturing halfway through a sentence and have no idea what the end of the sentence was or what I was talking about. My brain was so foggy. It was
Mm-hmm.
just embarrassing. And then I'd start breaking out in like a full body sweat. And I could only think about these young men and women sitting in front of me thinking, what is wrong with her? She can't finish a sentence and now she's soaked her entire outfit. And so I just started getting really honest about it. I was like, look, you know what? I know you're much younger than I and you don't know what's happening here, but this is perimenopause.
Uh-huh. Like
You will find
inaction.
this out one day. And we'd laugh about it and
Uh-huh.
just be real because there was nothing else I could do at that point,
Yeah.
to you just got to admit when you're losing it and keep doing the best you can.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, as long as I love that you're just honest about it, because, a lot of people try to hide like this change that's going on. And it's like, no, this is what happens. Like, hormones adjust, as you age, or, whatever. It can also, I know my hormones I've always had to work to manage them because of birth control.
Yeah.
Totally screwed me up. So since my early 20s, I'm like, why did I have a crying spell and this sort of stuff? And which eventually led me to figure out nutrition, holistic stuff, and yoga and that sort of stuff to help manage it. Because hormones will like make you that vibrant, potent woman, like you just said, or make you feel like you're
Or not.
crazy or not. Yeah.
Or both.
Or both.
Maybe both at the same time.
Yes, exactly.
A potent, insane woman.
Yes. And it's just like, and it's like, this is, it is what it is, but, there's also a balance. So if we're out of balance, there's resources and things that can help us. But sometimes there's also, just the change
Yeah.
that we're going to. But, I know that there are lifestyle medicine practices that can help us accept that, embrace it, go through it a little easier as well. So,
you had said that you and your audience love pelvic floor stuff.
yeah,
So let's go there a moment.
perfect.
As it connects to perimenopause and menopause, is a lot of my private clients are surprised, not just after childbirth, but just in general, that as they go through the midlife change, that they get incontinent. And that when they sneeze or laugh or cry or, anything, that basically they have a little bit of leakage. And so there's some really simple breathing and movement type things that we can do to help basically, that usually, I'm sure that the pelvic floor gets hypertonic, right? And so there's some really simple things we can do to soften and, open and basically help the pelvic floor not to be so hypertonic. And so maybe I'll make a little video for your people about one of the exercises that has worked for almost every woman I've given it to.
Yeah, that would be great. I'd love to share that with my Wild Wisdom Collective group on Facebook. I think that would be helpful. So everybody listening, that will be coming, because I actually, so I just joined a co-working space across the street from me, and I was talking with one of the people here, and one of the conversations was that whole incontinence thing, like, I sneeze and leak and that sort of stuff. And I know, like, I've talked to my mom and other people, it's like, well, that's normal. And it's like, no, it doesn't have to be. Like, there's things that you can do. And people like, oh, really? Because we don't talk about that. So that's why I like to talk about it. And I know that people have given me feedback on the podcast of like, thank you for talking about that issue, so I could have a resource or whatnot. And I even, I joked that I said, well, I don't know if people can hear me in the conference room because I'll be talking about all kinds of stuff. And I may say vagina, like, that sort of thing.
Oh, goodness. You said the word.
And then she was like, oh, no problem. But I was just like, that's what we talk about, because it's, not a dirty word. It's, something that needs to be discussed, this whole area. So yeah, I'd love to share that with our audience. And
when I was going through perimenopause and menopause, I had no idea what was coming. I mean, you hear the word, but you don't, and you hear, oh, this, that, the other thing, but it's intense for some women, myself included. Like, I was like, how do women function during these years? Like, I'm a disaster mentally, emotionally, spiritually. I don't recognize my body anymore. I mean, it was really, really hardcore. And so this, the fact that women don't talk about it until you get into the club, and then you start saying, has anybody else had this? Because this is really rough. I'm having complete drenching, every 3 times an hour or something. Then the stories come. Then they're like, oh yeah. So I think we're like all suffering in silence.
Yeah.
And nobody's talking about it. And, tying this back to Gen Z, imagine if you had been well prepared for, leakage after you have a child, or as you get older and go through these changes. Imagine if it was common knowledge to talk about perimenopausal symptoms and menopausal symptoms with our daughters at age 16, like, oh yeah, mom's going through this, and really have the generations teach each other. And even you with your 1-year-old daughter, like her getting to see mom making self-care a priority from the earliest moments of her memory. Mom went to Zumba class 3 times a week or whatever it is, right? I think that's beautiful.
Yeah.
A legacy to pass on.
I think that's important. Actually, you just touched on something I'm super passionate about, and something I'm working on about passing that information down. Because my daughter has participated when I do yoga on the floor now, and she's been in Koya classes dancing with me and that sort of stuff in my arms. And well, now she can dance on the ground, but that sort of thing. But it's, if we can bridge that gap, because hundreds, thousands of years ago, this information was shared and passed down.
Right.
There were villages and communities of women and that sort of
red
stuff.
Tents.
Yeah, right. And then that's been lost. So I was even talking to someone I work with in Kenya, and she was talking about, yeah, we're on our own too. Like, even in Africa. And I was like, like we're missing that gap, maiden, mother, crone, and all that knowledge and sharing that. And in that, you could be so much better prepared to deal with everything, the changes, the stuff that gets brought up, because I'm very passionate about, what comes up, the trauma that comes up during pregnancy and postpartum, and not only stuff that comes up anyway, but then especially there. But creating that village and sharing that information generation to generation, because it's not passed down. Like, I know my mom's having some menopause stuff. Her mother never taught her really anything. And I told her, I said, she was a great mom, but I was never taught anything. And I said, I wonder if her mom taught her anything. Like, where in that lineage was something broken and never shared? Because my mom she shares a lot with me. I remind her that, especially as a grandmother to me as a mother, and then to my daughter, she shares a lot of things, because I've never been a mom before, so I don't know. And I thank her for that, because she always thinks like I share a lot with her and she's learning from me. And I'm like, but I'm learning from you too. And it's been an interesting thing, like in my own personal development healing, we've kind of created this deeper bond and sharing of knowledge that can now maybe heal whatever was missing from that mother lineage. But I think it's so important. And how do you think, just sharing this, especially with young women, what is your advice on how to share this information, either just more openly talk about it, or in what ways to help young women, their mothers or aunts or whatever, kind of bridge the gap of information, help prepare them? What have you seen is very helpful?
I can go Eastern or Western. So 2 days ago, I also teach medical terminology, and the chapter was on the reproductive system.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of paused for a moment. I was like, okay, I'm going to have over 200 kids listening to me say penis and vagina and labia. I was like, come on, Amy, you can do this. Pump it up. You got this, right? But I decided to not only say the words and their functions, but also tell stories and make it normal. Like, hey, this is just another part of our bodies, and actually a very interesting part of our bodies. So like, even as a Western medical terminology professor, it felt really good to just talk about these things openly. So that's kind of the Western point is, hey, let's do that. And then the Eastern yoga side of me thinks we need, and this would be a great business opportunity for someone listening, or maybe you, we need formalized rituals to take us through these phases of life. We need a place where we can go with other women and other daughters and other granddaughters and do these rituals together, these crossing over from teenager to adult, from having a period to not having a period to moving into your crone years. Like, there really needs to be almost a yoga or shaman ritual ceremonies. And I think they could even be done online. I mean, we have to at this point, but I think that there's a real opportunity not just to have a great business idea, but to serve humanity in a way that, and like you said, women from Africa, women from Bolivia, women from Iran, like all over the world, I could see women tuning into this with their mothers and their daughters and their granddaughters to kind of mark these moments in life and talk about what's been and where we're going next.
I love this conversation, Amy. So I am introducing Wild Mama Wisdom. That's my next program. And I love this idea. So I may talk to you.
Take it.
Run with it.
I'll support you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, because so my ideal was to create a village, create the village that, and I was trying to figure out how to do that. And we could talk about it offline. And that may be some aspect of it, because I have, a lot of women that I worked with are women of, not all of them have children, but most of them had children who are, grown children now. They're in college. You're teaching them. So, but they were still dealing with things, and things they needed to deal with, maybe because mothers, didn't teach them, or their mothers made them feel ashamed, or society in general. A lot of people I worked with had issues with their mothers, which was also interesting to me. So that concept's in brewing. So I like because I love rituals. I think it's important.
Well, I'm going to throw one more at you because
man.
My mother died 2 years ago, and I made a tribute to her on Facebook, and it was my most liked post ever. And 700 women, most of whom I didn't even know, wrote to me about their mother and her death. And so I think your mother's death, and maybe even your grandmother's death, needs to be part of that whole ritual thing. You could go and find all the different points of transition in a woman's life, but that one surprised me, how many women, whether they loved and had a great relationship with their mother, or now she's gone and we never got to figure it out together. It's a really important transitional moment.
Yes, it is. And I'm sorry to hear about your mother. But it is a transitional moment, because there is, I could totally start crying just being a mom,
Yeah.
But there is, we don't think about that bond that's so intense, and the loss of that. And even for men, and their bond with their mother. Like, I've been noticed, I haven't said this to my father yet, but
he'll hear it.
well, if he listens to the podcast one day. Hi, Dad. But so I was thinking about like, as I was pregnant and having a child, I went and asked my mom, what's your birth story? I asked my grandma, or not her own birth story, but of mine and my sister, and then asked my grandma about my dad and uncles, and my grandma was like, it was fine. And then but then somebody said to me, well, she was probably gassed. Like, she doesn't remember. And so I was thinking about my dad, because my dad feels like he's never been loved by his mother, which I know she loved him, but she was also a very independent, more liberal woman, so, but then I thought about, there was a disconnect from the start. And it may not be that, like, I don't think she ever didn't love him, but that there was a disconnection from birth. And I know women who are experiencing emergency C-sections and all kinds of stuff feel a disconnection too, but like, there's a generation of men and women whose mothers don't remember the birth. And like, that in itself, like, so that's huge. That in itself can make us feel disconnected from ourselves and our mothers. And so
not to mention postpartum depression.
Yeah.
A woman's hormones are changed so much after the birth. And if she can't even be centered in herself, it's hard to be present to a baby. And then that's imprinted.
Yes, there's so many layers. Well, and and especially going back to the Gen Z, like, if you're a young mother who doesn't, because whether if you're an older mother, geriatric mother, that's what they call us, but or if you're, a lot of times you're 20, like my mom was 20, and you don't know yourself, and then all that stuff comes up. And my mom called it the baby blues, and and it's normal and that sort of stuff, and it's just like people don't know, but yeah, to have that support and that understanding. And I'm so glad you mentioned, all the transitions, coming into the world, departing the world, and everything in between, because there are so many. And many cultures used to have rituals and celebrate these transitions. And that's sort of, I'm no anthropologist, but I have this like research anthropologist like longing that to include some of that information. Yeah. and so, but it's just like that these things existed and then they disappeared. They're, that sort of stuff. But it's so important to bridge that. And I think the work that you're doing in the world and sharing this wisdom with women at the universities and in high schools and stuff is so important, because people need that, especially if they don't have it from their own mother for whatever various reasons, or they don't have an aunt or a big sister, or something like that, to have a mother figure or several mother figures some type of mentor who can share that wisdom. And I think that's very important to have in our lives. So I appreciate the work you're doing, Amy, and what you're sharing.
I'll just say one last thing, that I want men to know about all of this too, because they are the husbands, they are the fathers, they are the caretakers. And if they don't understand what we're going through, how can they support us? So I think it's as important that the young men in my class hear about perimenopause and vaginas and all of it, because it's almost like they're terrified of that stuff. You can just see their faces go white, like, did she really just say that? Right? Yeah. And I think it's important, because they are going to be a husband and a father and a son, and support their women throughout the lifespan, I hope.
Yeah, we want to teach men to be more supportive and understanding and be a partner, that there's a partnership there. And if, the traditional of like, we don't talk about that sort of stuff, or it's dirty or whatever, like breaking that mold and really sharing it with everyone. So I'm glad you're doing
maybe because of some hormone shifts and changes, maybe we're not super sweet all the time. Maybe we do speak our truth in a way that's a little painful. And that would be good for them to understand that this is sometimes just what a woman needs to do on certain days of the month.
Yeah. Or, like you said, I remember like sometimes I'm like, I don't need you to tell me a solution. Just like, I don't know, hold me, or, go pick up the groceries so I don't have to, like something like, and then, it just makes me laugh thinking about that. But like, it's just like, just shifting some of those societal dynamics a bit, letting people learn in a different way. And I think with Gen Z men, like they're starting to be a little more open to that. And and there's a shift. I have, I'm not going to send him this podcast to edit. He hasn't been editing it, but we've talked about it. And he's 25. He's my handyman. And he's like, we talk about everything. His mom, like his family owns a lavender farm in Kentucky. And so and she's an inspirational speaker. So he was kind of, raised with a little bit of open-mindedness, but we talk about all this stuff and it's sort of like, wow, look at you. Like, I bet your girlfriend thinks you're amazing because, we all have our stuff to work out, but because you're a little more open and receptive and I bet you're very helpful and nurturing in ways, but, still handy. Like he's put together a bunch of my furniture. So, so it's really, really nice and to see that shift. And, just needed some time to happen and the different world and stuff. So, but I wanted to say so thankful for you coming on, Amy, and sharing your wisdom and, like I said, what you're doing in the world and sharing it with everyone, men and women, especially the college students, who everybody's finding their way.
Yeah,
And
we are.
yeah, definitely. So,
I have great hope for the future, though. I really, after working with them for 25 years, I know that they're going to do a great job taking us forward. I'm very, very hopeful.
so I want to hear from you. What did you think of today's topic? Direct message me on Instagram or Facebook, or better yet, join the Wild Wisdom Collective, my free Facebook group, and chime in on the discussion. I look forward to hearing your thoughts and insight. And if you love what you're hearing, please take a moment to click the button on your smartphone to subscribe. Or, better yet, write a review and tell me why you love tuning in. And maybe you'll be featured in our listener spotlight on a future episode. I cannot wait to see you again, same time, same place next week. Wild blessings.